Hello, my name's Storey, and I'm reading an extract today from a historical thriller called The Darkness of Colours by Argentinian author Martín Blasco. This, as I say, is a historical thriller set around the idea of nature versus nurture, where a scientist in turn of the century Buenos Aires takes 5 babies and treats each one to a different upbringing. The story is split into 2 narratives. One, we follow Dr. Andrews's diary as he's carrying out this experiment, and the other follows Alejandro, who 25 years later has been brought in by one of the parents of one of the kidnapped children to try and investigate what has happened. The Annuar family lived near Constitution Station. The main entrance led into a corridor linking all the rooms. At the far end you could see a patio with a grapevine. The decor was typically Middle Eastern. Calligraphy adorned nearly all the walls. There was an enormous tapestry depicting Lebanon's rural countryside, alongside carpets and large embroidered cushions. Omar and Alejandro were in the main reception room, a dark space with a rug covering just about the entire floor. Forgive me for not introducing my wife. Amira's return has been a great joy for her, but also a great shock. I am concerned about her health. I would prefer if we spoke without her. Alejandro still wasn't entirely sure what he was doing there. He had been swept along by Omar to his house. The idea of a little unexpected work on the side had also helped. While he received a stable salary, he was always short of money. I told you previously that my daughter was taken when she was a baby, and that she has recently returned, said Omar while pouring a cup of tea. Now let me explain what I want you to do, Senor Berg. Allow me to start at the beginning. Omar placed the teapot on the table and lit a cigarette before he spoke. 2 weeks ago, my wife was on the patio watering the plants when there was a knock at the front door. She opened the door to a young woman with a confused look on her face. My wife inquired who she was and what she wanted. The young lady replied that her name was Amira Anwar. That was, is my daughter's name. My wife almost fainted. The tea was not to Alejandro's taste. He would have preferred a cup of mate. He stirred his tea just to be doing something with his hands. Are you sure it's your daughter? Of course, we didn't believe it at first. We had to check it was really her. I wouldn't have known how. The last time she was with us, she was a baby. How could we recognize that baby in the grown woman before us? But my wife was prepared. Mothers are special. Is your mother still living, Senor Berg? No, I barely met her. I'm so sorry. We men can attempt to be good fathers. We can love our children more than our own lives, and yet a mother's love will always be superior. Zainab had never abandoned hope that Amira would return. Our daughter's death would have been less painful. Zainab was tortured by so many unanswered questions. Was she alive? Had another family raised her? Did she know about us, and would we ever see her again? If she didn't succumb to grief, it was because she clung to the hope that Amira would return. She forced her memory to retain each individual sign that would help her to recognize her daughter. So when this young lady appeared, soon after letting her in, my wife asked if she could check her body for the features she remembered, and did indeed find a birthmark on her left shoulder, her middle toes longer than her big toes, the almost lobeless ears, her mouth that rose slightly more on the left than on the right. It was a huge joy, mashallah, thanks be to God. Alejandro interrupted Omar, fearing that in his emotional state he might just forget how to speak Spanish. How did your daughter disappear? Back then we were living in a tenement building. It wasn't long after we'd arrived in Argentina, and we were very poor. The only joy we had was our daughter, and one morning she simply disappeared. Somebody took her from her cradle during the night. My God! And then what happened? Nothing. The police came, but they weren't interested. And then we discovered that other children had disappeared that same night from houses nearby. But you heard nothing all these years? Nothing. Over time, we have been able to improve our situation, and we bought this house. But we have never been truly happy. The pain of having lost our daughter never left us, until she returned. And where has she been all that time? That is a question Amira can't answer, and the reason you're here. I don't understand. She doesn't remember anything. Amira cannot remember what happened in her life prior to the moment she knocked on our door. Tired of stirring, Alejandro put the spoon down on the table. What he had just heard made no sense. I know what you're thinking, that it's impossible, continued Omar. I thought the same. But it's like she has experienced some kind of shock, which means she can't remember. We thought it would soon improve, but 2 weeks have passed and she still is no better. We have seen many different doctors in the last few days, and they all say that she is healthy, but her memory has not returned, and I want to discover the truth. Have you been to the police? They did nothing back then, so why would I call on them now? I also don't wish to place Amira in danger. Amira is strange. It's not only that she can't remember, there's more to it, something that the police wouldn't be able to deal with. That's why I thought about approaching a newspaper. Don't journalists dedicate their time to searching for information? That's what I want. Information. And why me? Because you're one of us, Senor Berg. Alejandro understood. Few topics divided public opinion like immigration. The men and women who had once disembarked from the boats with nothing were now the majority. Their children were not only Argentinian by birth, but they had become lawyers, architects, doctors, and teachers, fulfilling their parents' dreams. They were young people who also held influence in Argentinian politics. Their parents had crossed the world so that they could have better opportunities. They couldn't simply sit around twiddling their thumbs.